So we got the CR running. In the last video, we gave the bike a much needed carb rebuild, new coolant, oil, and air filter. Today's video, I want to be covering what else I did to the CR to get it running proper, but I also wanted to cover one of the tougher issues I ran into with this project. Stay tuned for more. First things first, the bike had a lot of surface rust after sitting for 6 years, and even though it was garage, there was plenty of stuff that I had to take a wire brush to and some WD-40 to knock off the big stuff. After cleaning up my bike, the first thing I noticed with one of the front wheels was there was a crack in it. So I was left with a couple of options. I either replace the wheel and have that fixed, or I run it and risk having my front wheel explode while I'm going down a trail. And you can probably imagine that I didn't want that to happen for the maiden flight of this bike. So I ended up going down to Wheelworks over in Orange, California. They're a great shop and had fast turnaround for swapping out the rim, the spokes, and lacing that up to my hub, and it looked awesome. So at this point I'm feeling good. I'm going through my checklist, I'm getting all the proper maintenance done. I was able to bleed my brakes with no issues. The only thing left that I had to do was swap out the sprockets and put a new chain on. Sounds really simple, right? I was able to get both sprockets on, no issues. Then came the chain. Now there's nothing wrong with the chain. It was just in this awkward position where the tension was just a bit too loose, and all I needed to do was go to the adjuster bolts on the swing arm and lengthen that out a little bit more so the tension was a little bit tighter. The issue that I ran into was the left side adjuster bolt was completely seized. This is a very niche issue. I'm just going to share the couple options where in an ideal state what you would do to get out a seized bolt, and if you run into absolute DEFCON 1, you have to chop the bolt and use a repair kit like I did. I'm going to basically describe those two options and how that should go. So to summarize fixing an issue like this in 4 points, I would boil it down to 1 being penetrating fluid, 2 being heat, 3 is leverage, 4 is patience. After consulting multiple dads, talking to a few different shops, here's the consensus of what I see is the best way to go about this. The first thing you should do is let the bolt sit overnight after soaking it with some penetrating fluid. Douse the bolt as much as you possibly can and have as much patience as you possibly can, assuming you don't have a hard deadline to meet. Now, after letting it soak, the main thing you want to do is make sure you're applying a ton of heat and a torch to either the bolt itself and the threads or the swing arm, not both. I was told that it's one or the other to make sure the material breaks loose from it. In a perfect world where projects go according to plan, you would take a breaker bar or your impact, and this bolt would eventually back itself out after moving it back and forth, threading it in and out, and it will finally break loose eventually. Now in my case, where I snapped the head of the bolt off so half of it was still sticking out, I had a couple options. One of them was I can go through the whole process of putting a tap in and rethreading the entire hole after drilling it out, which I really did not want to do. That's typically one of the hardest things to properly do and keep aligned at that awkward angle, especially since I didn't have my swing arm detached from my entire bike. Now, the second option, which is the one that I went with, was finding a press-fitted kit to ultimately tap in a 1/2-inch insert that you can thread into with a new bolt after you drill out about a 1/2 inch of space from where the old bolt was to the new slotted part. So step 1 is carefully grind down the bolt with a Dremel until the surface is as flat and flush as you can get it. So much of this is going to be keeping things easily aligned so you don't drill at an angle and your swing arm stays straight. Step 2 is taking a center punch and trying to directly hit the center of the bolt that's stuck in there as a starting point for your pilot bit to drill into. Now with step 3, you take your pilot bit and basically drill as straight as you possibly can in the middle of that swing arm without putting a weird angle on it as you go to about a 1/2 inch of depth. Now this next part is taking the bit that the kit comes with and just drilling into the pilot hole about the same 1/2 inch depth. Now part of this, since the bit is going to be a little bit smaller than the insert that it comes with, work the outside a little bit extra so it has a good place to set first. Because when you press fit in this insert and this sleeve, it's going to be a little bit hard to tap in at first, but you just got to be patient with it. The final step, once you've press fitted in the sleeve, you just have to thread in the bolt and put in the new hardware. One thing to note is the bolt is going to more than likely be a bit long for your setup on your bike. You are losing a little bit of length in the actual adjustment bolt itself. You're going to have to chop down the bolt to around the threshold that you need to be at for the chain tension itself. That's probably the only downside I could think of for this kit. Other than that, as you can see from this video, the bike's moving, it performed totally fine, and I'm extremely happy with how it helped me get out of this pinch. So that's going to conclude the second part to this series. I'm by no means done with this bike. There's still plenty of cosmetic things I want to do. I want to make sure that I get a new set of wheels on this, or at least refresh the rear wheel so it looks symmetrical. There's plastics, there's plenty of other cosmetic items that I want to handle and make sure that this bike is running really well as well. This was really gratifying to do, honestly. I'm not a huge wrencher on things. I like to dabble when I can, but being able to rebuild the carb, get this thing running and just looking a lot nicer than what it was before is something I'm really proud of. And if you haven't noticed from the B-roll footage of me riding, other than me being somewhat of a slow rider, is that I didn't have any breakdown with this bike. Now, in the 5 to 6 minutes you're watching this video, obviously that doesn't encompass the whole riding trip, but I literally ran into 0 issues. No coolant leaks, no oil leaks. It just ran exactly how I remember, and I think that's a great testimony to Honda that no one really needed. As always, thank you so much for watching the video. Please comment in the section below, what do you think I should do next to this bike? Whether it's cosmetic, whether it's any performance upgrade. Would love to hear everyone's thoughts. Hit the like and subscribe button if you haven't yet. And I'm excited for the future where I'm gonna get my street bike down here and I'll be making more videos soon.